I'm making Kirblogs like nobody does. This is how we do it. Welcome. It was 2 years ago yesterday on 11/27/2013, I think. I can't remember what time is anymore, what anything is anymore. I started Kirblogs on this YouTube channel, and this is the 2-year anniversary Kirblog. Yay! Hello, everybody. Hope you all, anybody listening to this, had a lovely Thanksgiving if you celebrate it, and to anybody else outside of the U.S. listening, I hope you had a great week in general. I hope everybody had a great week, Thanksgiving irregardless, but if you happen to have that, then I hope it was good. Anyway, this is going to be a short one, just as kind of a retrospective thing. I wanted to look back on all the ones that I did for this past 365 days of the year. This was a really, really good year for Kirblog specifically, because I think once I had kind of my groove down on how to go about doing these and experimenting a little bit more and trying a few different things and getting the chance to talk about a lot of stuff that I'd wanted to, and stuff thanks to all of you guys for suggesting topics and everything. So I wanted to take this opportunity to just talk about a few particular ones. I'm going to have a bunch of annotations on the screen at different points to recommend certain Kirblogs for you to go back and check out. I've assembled a list of different ones that I would recommend. Of course, you can always just go on to the various different playlists that I've had and everything, all throughout. But in general, I will say I really appreciate all of these suggestions that everybody out there has made. Obviously, I've come up with a lot of the, this particular year, I've come up with a lot of the topics on my own, because I wanted to talk about different things as they were relevant for, different things that were coming out at the time. Certain movies and certain things about games coming out or whatever, different events and things. But a lot of my favorites are actually ones that were recommended by all of you listening out there. And I'm still sitting on a whole bunch more that I'll be getting to eventually. Although for December, I've got something very special going on, which I'll be announcing at the end of this Kirblog. But hopefully you won't skip to the end and you'll know ahead of time. But anyway, so I'm going to start off with probably the most important ones, the advice Kirblogs. Whenever these happen to do very well, it's not so much about like, oh man, this video was popular, it got a lot of views or whatever. The reason I'm very happy that these end up doing very well in particular is because I feel like they're the most beneficial to the people who bother to listening to my rambling for, anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 to sometimes over an hour, minutes long, about various things. These I tend to think are kind of like the most generally helpful to the people who are bothering to listen to these in the first place. So I have dealing with discouragement, never stop learning, do's and don'ts of con guest etiquette, how we act and react, picked on, peer pressure or me pressure, and knowing yourself ain't easy. All of these are things that I myself have had to kind of come to terms with and learn different things about myself over the last 26 years. Coming up on 27, I'm going to be 27 in about a month. Jesus Christ almighty. These are cases where I'm very happy to bestow anything that I know that may be of any kind of help to all of you out there at all. Particularly picked on and how we act and react. Those two specifically, I think, are like the most that kind of hit home for me in terms of what I've had to kind of deal with myself throughout time. But all of them, I think, are worth checking out. In general, I'm just going to be recommending ones that, like, if you haven't heard them before, maybe go back and take a listen to them. If maybe you're a newer subscriber or listener or anything, or if maybe you might have missed some, these are definitely ones I recommend. Do's and don'ts of con guest etiquette apparently got passed around a lot. I think Cassandra Lee Morris actually tweeted about it, and a few other voice actors that were like, yes, I agree with this, all of this. That was with Ben Diskin I had on board as a special guest for that one, so that was a lot of fun. And speaking of which, good timing, guest Kirblogs. I've had a lot of wonderful guests on board. I'll start off with just saying Voice October and all the people who were able to join me for that one was something that I was very, very happy that I got to do. Having everybody from Disgaea 5 as well as Tales of Zestiria and my two lovely guests, both Ben Diskin, who I mentioned before, and Mona Marshall joining me for those for those four very long Kirblogs, and having everybody around for those was awesome. And I'm very glad that I was able to do those for a whole solid month. And, of course, having the kind of retrospective one that I did at the beginning of November about my roles in Zestiria and Disgaea was also really great to do. And I'm glad that it was kind of a full circle thing. And some more voiceover stuff kind of picked up from that. So I in some ways I credit it to everybody for listening and caring and paying attention and hopefully enjoying the projects that I got to work on that and everybody else was involved with as well. So. But yeah, the Voice October ones are all kind of lined up in a row on the big massive Kirblog playlist. You can go check those all out if you want, and of course the separate playlist for all the voice acting related ones in general that I've done over time. But anyway, going on to guest Kirblogs in general, I had a lot of really wonderful people join me for many of them, and there's far too many to count. But some of my personal favorites involve Smashing Friends, which was with Ed Bosco, Xander Mobus, Ben Diskin, and Kira Buckland. Pursuing Passion with Shady Vox, where we were talking about the stuff that we love to do and why. That was a great one. Early DB's Days, which was kind of the beginning of the 7 Kirblogs that I did leading up to when the Resurrection F movie came out. I did that one with Vegito EX, who has been on, I want to say, 3-4 different Kirblogs, I think, before. We talked about kind of the early days of Dragon Ball Z fandom and everything, and that was really a nice little nostalgia trip to go down. And then Dragon Balls Deep into Fandom was also another one that I did in that same batch. That was with Kaiser Neko of Team 4-Star fame, who we talked about just like what it's like to be a hardcore fan of Dragon Ball in general. So 2 DBZ ones mixed in there, but both ones that I very much loved getting to do. Working for Free and Selling Out. That was one I did with animator Matt Wilson, who I learned a lot from without even knowing him, just through his work and the stuff that he was talking about in a lot of his blogs and everything back in the day. Having him getting to just do something with him in a collaborative sense, and for something that I feel was also kind of like an advice Kirblog in some way about what it is that artists should be aware of in the future and everything. That was awesome, so I'm very glad that I got to do that one with him. And then a more recent one kind of leading up to when Tome was close to finished and everything, all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Parody Rangers, Going Up to Evil's Face to Go With Bam with Chris Zito, kind of looking back on all the stuff about Parody Rangers way back in the day. Was really, really cool to do that. And Zito's a wonderful person, and I love having him on board and getting to give him any kind of credit that he totally deserves for all the stuff that he works his ass off on and just how funny he was back in that series. There's tons and tons. Of course, I also have an entire guest Kirblog playlist of all the people that I've ever had on the show. I've been very lucky to have so many people come in and join me for various topics and talk about a bunch of stupid shit. So that was awesome, and go check those out if you're so inclined. And then lastly, I'll talk about the post-tome Kirblogs, which a lot of these were ones that I think if I wasn't necessarily planning on doing them, I'm glad that I finally got to do them because they involved things that I basically couldn't talk about in depth until Tome was finished and people knew the full scope of the story that I told. Particularly, it's a great big universe, self-inserts across the multiverse, and of course, most recently, Tome, the whole story, which is one that I did kind of just recounting the entire history of the show from beginning to end. The other 3 before that I listed were other ones that involved kind of different aspects of storytelling that involved examples of big secrets about the story of Tome that I couldn't really talk about until they were completely finished. And there's some other ones as well that I would love to kind of go into with that, but I just haven't had the time to dedicate to them just yet. But there's a lot of stuff like that, and I was very happy that I got to do those for sure, sitting on a lot of those topics. And, as often is the case, I've been sitting on topics from folks that have submitted great questions for a very, very long time, and there's plenty that I want to get to, and lots of room for doing tons and tons more of them in the future. So, I have no signs of slowing down. I've, doing Kirblogs twice every week, more or less, except for in certain cases, has been really rewarding, and I'm glad that people have followed them and enjoyed and hopefully enjoyed them so much. And there's been certain ones that when they get into like the 5-digit range of views, it tends to be for something that's like worthwhile. Like I can't think of any particular ones offhand, but when I see that happen, it's not just it's like, oh man, that video is really popular. It's not as black and white as that. It's more so that it's like, oh good, like what I had to say was hopefully meaningful and impactful in some way. Even if it was just like me recounting, remember this video game or this anime or this whatever, which again, I don't like to do those super often because I feel like they're too easy. I like to do something a little bit more specific than just memories of this thing or whatever. If I do those, I like them to be a little bit more sparse, I guess you could say. But yeah, just in general, I really appreciate whenever, all of you guys out there who are listening to these do enjoy them. I basically read every single comment, more or less, as much as I possibly can. And, this has been kind of my bread and butter in terms of, being able to sustain a living. Because this is the most consistent thing I'm able to do on a weekly basis. So, as with always, as with everything, thank you all for, being part of this and helping me out so much, by tuning in and hopefully getting something out of it. That's actually going to wrap us up. I know this is a relatively short one, but I didn't want to waste too much of your time. I just wanted to say thank you and give some recommendations and some suggestions if there's any that you haven't gotten to check out. So that's going to wrap us up. I guess I don't like to do this very often, but just since this is kind of a particular occasion, if you haven't subscribed or liked or anything, please do, because that very much helps me out, and I very, very much appreciate it if so. As always, I have the annotation to do that and a link to my website where you can check out all my animations and more of my stuff. I actually just recently, thanks to Mark Swint, I revised just chrisniosi.com in addition to the Tome website, the chrisniosi.com/Tome website. So if you want to check out more of my stuff, there's links to all sorts of different things there as well if you're interested. But that'll do it. I will say you are more than welcome to leave a comment or a Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook message, whatever you want about potential future Kirblog topics. But specifically, I'm going to say that for the next month, as we're now entering into December, we're actually going to be starting another fully themed month. And that is going to be Poke-sember, as I'm calling it. It's going to be a fully Pokemon-themed month. I will say I'm aware that unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the guy, but there's a guy that guy with the glasses who's been doing sort of a Pokemon month and looking through different Pokemon movies and things as of late. I did not know that, but this was planned ahead of time, and I apologize if I'm coming off like I'm ripping that off. It was not intending to. Then again, obviously doing a Pokemon month is super easy because there's a million things to say about Pokemon as per the usual. But yeah, I thought this would be kind of a fun way to end out the year. And so I do have a bunch of ideas that I'm going to be doing already. So I will say that some of the topics that I have planned are going to be my early days memories of like when the Generation 1 games came out when I was in grade school. I'm going to be doing one about my favorite moments and parts of the Pokemon anime series, of course. I'm going to be doing one about my top 10 favorite Pokemon in general, like the actual creatures. And then I'm going to be doing one about my experience recording as my character on the Pokemon anime as well, my character Corey. I'll be doing one about, and then I have one more, actually, that I will not spoil. It'll be hopefully the last Kirblog of the year, actually, which will be on the 29th of December. I forget if that's a Tuesday or a Saturday. I think it's a Tuesday. But either way. So that'll be the last one, but I'll keep that one a surprise. But otherwise, there's 4 empty slots. So if you have any Pokemon-related specific questions about anything that you'd like to ask, and maybe if it might help after you hear the first couple that I do, if that might help to make it a little more specific, leave a comment about that, any messages you want to send or anything for Poke-sember, Kirblog topic ideas, please submit those. I'll be more than happy to take them into account and tackle those. And then once 2016 starts, I'll just be going back into doing, the usual kind of non-themed regular Kirblog stuff, as far as I know, unless something specific comes up that I can talk about. But anywho, that'll do it. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for everything, as per the usual. I know, again, I'm always, but Thanksgiving was recently. I try to be thankful all the time for everything that all of you do for me, and so that's gonna do it. I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye. It's a hell of a way to end 2 years.